All right, guys. So in today's episode, I felt like getting my workout on. So we're going to be reviewing the 105 1.4 from Sigma. And as you can see, this thing is massive. That's an understatement. Generally speaking, I'm not a prime shooter, so to speak. Like, I've used primes. I like them. I love the quality of them. But generally, I stick to zooms. So anybody that knows or follows or has ever worked with me knows that generally I stick with my zoom lenses. But when Sigma asked me if I wanted to review a couple of lenses, I was looking through the options, and I just felt like this is something that if you're a prime shooter, definitely is at the top of the list of something that you might want to try. Now, for those of you that have followed our channel, you know that this is not going to be a super in-depth, numbers, seeing if the bokeh is more round or more squared or any of that silly nonsense, in my opinion. I just don't see that is ever going to be something that a client is going to look at me and go, well, the photos were beautiful, but the bokeh, it's just a little too squared. It's never happened. It's never gonna happen unless you're shooting for a photographer who's like that. And if you do, God bless you, because that just sounds like a nightmare. But my point on that is, this isn't gonna be a super technical review. It's gonna be more of a real life review of a lens that Sigma was gracious enough to lend me for about a month. So the main surprise, honestly, to me, because as I mentioned, I'm not a prime shooter, is how much I wanted to use it. So what I mean by that is, when I first got it, I kind of was looking at it like, okay, I'll give it a shot, I'll try it out, because the other one that they sent me is the macro lens, and that's going to be the next video. And that's the one that I really wanted to try out because I've been using a different macro lens. Watch the video, I'll explain why. But since we weren't shooting a wedding, we were just shooting engagement sessions, family sessions, couple sessions, this one came out to play a little bit more before I played with the macro lens. So while I was getting a ton of content with this one, I started to fall in love with a prime, which is pretty crazy for anyone that knows me hearing me say that. Now, I've owned the 85 1.4 from Sigma before the Art came out. I believe it's the EX model, and it was great. I mean, I loved it. I thought it was really, really good. But then when I made the switch from Nikon to Sony, I wanted to stick to what I need first, and I always find that prime lenses are more wants than needs. So I wanted to get what I needed first, and then I could pick up something that I liked. So that's why I wanted to experiment with something like the 105. Now, full disclosure, I've tried the 135 1.8, and I actually ended up returning it because it could be way too long for any type of headshots, for any type of portraits. It just the reach was too far. And at that point, I felt like my 70-200 did a better job if that's what I'm gonna carry around for that type of focal length, if that makes sense. So the 85, I've liked it. You guys, I'm sure, have played with it if you've been into photography for some time, and it is usually what you call the portrait lens. However, I do find this one to give just a little bit more of a look. And what I mean by that is, as you're seeing right now on your screens, the feel, the softness, the bokeh, it's not, and I'm not going to go super technical, like I said, there is something that's a little bit more unique to this lens. And that's what really won me over, that I went, whoa. And for me to really salivate over the depth of field or something like that is huge, because I'm usually if the couple's not going to notice the difference, why am I going to break my back carrying an extra lens? And that's been my reason for not using primes. But I could tell, I could genuinely see a big difference between this and shooting at, let's say, this focal length at 2.8 with more zooms. So I was pleasantly surprised. I took it on a few headshot sessions. I took it on one senior portrait session. I took it on multiple engagement sessions. I did take it to a wedding, but because of the time constraints, I didn't get to use it because it was just a little chaotic. This is, right now we're at the end of February, so it is a little bit of the slower season, even here in California. So I didn't really get to use it on a wedding day because I wanted to move a little quicker. And that might be more, if I own this lens, how I would treat it. I would use it on lower stress situations, where you're not running around and having to capture every single candid. Like, I personally wouldn't break this out during the ceremony. I would stick to my zooms to give me a little more range in case something unexpected happens. But if you're shooting like I said, headshot sessions, senior portraits, engagement sessions, all that, this is a tremendous lens. Now, getting into autofocus speed, it is very quick. It's not something that it's not going to be hunting. It's not. So comparably, I know it's a different generation, but when I used to have the 85 1.4 on my DSLR, I do remember remember quite a bit of hunting. With this, I didn't feel any of that. It was just, if I aim it, it's gonna capture it. Not only that, check out these photos that I'm showing you guys right now. In these photos, they were walking towards the camera. At 1.4, because I wanted to really test it in tracking mode on my A9, and I mean, I would say the hit rate was probably 90%. There was very little, probably even higher. There were very few frames where it missed the focus. And to me, that is incredible, because I remember the days of 2.8 or even F4 where if the lens isn't fast enough, it wasn't keeping up. And with this paired with the A9, it really was very, very surprisingly quick. Under low light situations, again, it performed really, really well. Backlit, I don't think I tested. Well, yeah, you know what? Backlit, I didn't test it too much because, I mean, to me, I go, why would I be shooting into a backlit situation? Like, if you can avoid it, avoid it. So why am I gonna do that? So I didn't throw it into backlit situations too much, but I did shoot with it at night. I did shoot with it in low light situations, and it still performed really, really well. Now, just so we're not, I hate when it's just one side and just raving and all that. So just to not be completely on one side, a few cons. The main one is weight. I mean, this thing is not a light lens. I mean, look at the size of the element. So it's a trade-off. You have to understand, you want that nice depth of field, you're going to be carrying around something that's very heavy. Here's like a giveaway. As soon as you see something, as soon as you see a tripod attachment on the lens, you know it's going to be a really heavy lens. So as soon as I saw that, I'm like, yep, this one's going to be, well, I mean, as soon as I saw this, I said, yeah, this thing's going to be heavy. But having that, you know, when you look at it in pictures, it's going to be a heavy lens. Also, with the lens hood, it's not a negative. I guess I just forgot to mention it. You use this little mechanism right here, or little thing that you twirl to take it off and put it on. Personally, once I put it on, I don't ever take them off. There's a little tip. There's been, actually, it was with my 85. No, it was with my 85, but it wasn't the Sigma one. It was when I had the Nikon 1.8. It was a metal hood, and it was similar to this, where you attach it like this. I smashed it into a door so hard that the metal bent. However, it's much cheaper to replace a lens hood than it is to replace a glass. So that's why I always say just put the lens hood on and just leave it on, because if you break this, and even if it's on the expensive side for lens hoods, it's still going to be cheaper than fixing the glass or replacing it. So once I put this thing on, I've left it on ever since. There's manual and autofocus on the side. I never took it off of autofocus because I didn't see a reason for it. And then other than that, you can rotate this little guy right here to rotate, which I did do sometimes, and it has little dots over here where you can line them up. I did do it sometimes, so if I'm shooting vertical, I can rest my hand on this little thing right here to stabilize. So it gives you that little option right there. I would say, honestly, the main negative, I guess you would say, it is the weight. It's having to carry an extra lens. If you're not primarily going to be shooting with primes, to me, it was just having that extra lens with me. It wasn't a huge deal. It wasn't something that I was dreading carrying this thing around, but I did have to shift around in my bag to make sure to accommodate for it. That's really the only thing. Personally, at this point, if I were to say, would I get the 85mm 1.4 or would I get the 105 1.4? I would get the 105. I know that it's a little bit more expensive, but to me, the look that you're getting out of this is something that is a lot more unique than an 85 1.4 in my opinion. So if you want to play with a nice prime that gives you a different type of look, I would go with this. So in conclusion, I mean, I think this is a real home run. I really, really like it. Will I personally be buying it for myself? Maybe later on. I try to prioritize what makes more sense. The macro lens, spoiler alert, I'll definitely be ordering that one because that's something that I don't have. I don't have a macro lens that, well, I kind of do. I'll explain it in the video, but that's one that I need. This is more of a want, so this one can wait a little bit. If I fall backwards into a couple of $1,000s, boom, I'll go and pick it up. But for now, this one's gonna wait. The macro I'm definitely gonna get, and I'll explain in the next video why that is. Again, thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm gonna leave a link below to the Sigma website, so if you wanna read as far as how many elements and all this jibber jabber that I personally think is irrelevant, but if you need something to read at the toilet, there it is. So I'll leave it down below. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching.